Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
The most important role of a crew leader is leadership. Without the ability to lead and motivate others, the crew leader will probably not be successful. A good crew leader manages to keep his crew motivated and on task even in tough conditions. This module is about the strategies you can use to direct and motivate your team from the beginning of the project all the way to completion. You will see how being a leader takes focus, energy, and determination. Good working relationships are built on trust, mutual respect, communication, and cooperation. Good leadership skills model these same qualities. Think about how you want to be treated, then use that as a model for how you treat your crew. Just as you want your superiors to respect what you do, being a good leader means respecting your crew members. Just like you, they have something to contribute. Everyone is on the same team. You're all focused towards the same goal: a good installation, completed on time and on budget. To achieve this goal, you need the crew to do their tasks well and efficiently, but the team also needs you to give them what they need to complete their tasks well. Never leave your team members in the dark. A common source of friction happens when the crew leader expects results, but isn't really sharing information to help the team do their jobs. You are responsible for communicating what needs to be done. You'll find your greatest success when you're on the same page and not working at cross purposes. Your team members may see things just a little differently than you, and they might not do everything exactly the way you would do it. They bring their own knowledge and experience. You should see that as a positive. You can focus on explaining the outcomes and results that you need first, then you can ask what other information they need. Over-explaining things to a seasoned pro can be just as detrimental as under-explaining things to someone new in the business. In all cases, you want to assess what the person needs to understand to get the task done correctly. In the case of an experienced crew member, cover only the things that are new or different for the project. For less experienced crew members, be sure to communicate both the big picture and the little details. You can ask the experienced team members for suggestions and advice on how the job can proceed more efficiently. In the case of an inexperienced crew member, don't make the mistake of under-explaining a task. It's easy to forget how long you've been doing tasks that you now do really well, and how much on-the-job learning you did to be able to do those tasks really well. Memory can be deceiving too. While you may remember doing the task perfectly the first time it was explained to you, as if by instinct, this is probably not true to life. When explaining tasks to inexperienced crew members, it is often helpful to do more than just show them once what you'd like them to do. Take a little bit of time to explain why you do things the way you do them, pointing out safety requirements as well as the marks of a job well done. Give them time to ask questions. It can also be helpful to ask them to explain to you what you've just asked them to do. This will allow them to think through the task while you're there and can help identify questions while you're right there to answer them. Leaving before a crew member's questions have been answered can be pretty frustrating for the crew member. They might be ashamed to track you down right away to get answers to the questions they have, and may be slow getting started because, well, they're not really sure what they're supposed to be doing. With inexperienced crew members doing new tasks, check up on them not long after they've started to address any questions they may have had and to determine how things are going. Poor or sloppy work by new employees is more often a result of poor explanation on your part. If you want to be successful as a crew leader, here are 3 big things to avoid. 1 is trying to be just one of the crew. While this reflects a desire to be liked, the crew leader may end up shirking their leadership responsibilities, causing problems for the crew down the road. Work doesn't get done as well as it should. In a worst-case scenario, the crew leader actually demotivates his team by participating in bad behaviors or negative comments about customers or even management. The second is the crew leader who is condescending, arrogant, or rude to his team. Puffed up with new authority, a crew leader can make life miserable for the crew, who often repay the favor in any way they can find. Lead by setting an example and stay focused on the needs of the job. The third is the crew leader who behaves like a seagull. He flies into situations, makes lots of noise, craps all over morale, and flies back out again. This kind of crew leader is often the one who spends all day on his cell phone in an air-conditioned truck, while the crew is outside struggling without adequate information, resources, and feedback. Set a good example by doing your job well. The work you do to prepare the job and the day's tasks sets the tone for the rest of the crew. If you show up organized and on top of the project, your crew will be able to do the work they need to. They will respect the effort you are putting in, even if they don't fully realize how much time goes in preparing for that day. On the other hand, if you show up on the job site unprepared and disorganized, you're not only going to waste time getting things going, but you'll clearly be demonstrating your own lack of standards and conscientiousness. Doing your job well builds credibility with the crew because it allows them to do their jobs well. When giving direction or feedback, keep the comments focused on the work and not the person. Let's say your crew member has dug a trench that's wavy, crooked, and generally not acceptable for the drain line that has to go into it. Which of these works best? George, these trenches are a bit crooked. They get out of line here, and the pipe's not going to work. Could you please straighten them out for me?
George, what the are you thinking? These trenches look terrible!
So, both comments identify a problem with George's trenches, but they do so in very different ways. The first comment remains focused on the work, this particular trench and the specific problems with it. It makes a concrete suggestion about how to solve the problem, and George can get straight to work correcting it. This kind of criticism is impersonal. It's not a criticism of George, and it doesn't criticize or degrade the labor that's gone into digging the trench. It's an observation about the trench and what needs to be done to correct a problem. The second comment, as you could probably tell, is personal. It begins with a direct criticism of George and makes a value judgment about his work. The work is terrible. Further, it's pretty vague. If this is the only thing that the crew leader says about the trenches, it's possible that George doesn't even know what's wrong with them. Are they crooked, not wide enough, not deep enough? George's progress is likely to come to at least a temporary standstill because he now feels bad about his work and he's not sure how to correct it. The difference between criticizing the work and criticizing the person is important for keeping discussions focused and productive. When comments and questions begin and end with the work, there is room for questions and discussions about how to solve the problem and how to avoid it in the future. But when comments are directed at the person, the crew member is likely to be offended. Any additional discussion of the problem will certainly be strained and may not be productive. It also creates immediate workplace conflict and may contribute to a sense that the crew leader and the crew members are on opposite sides. Staying focused on the work helps everyone stay on the same page with the same goal in view. Another way to build a professional relationship with your crew is to value questions. Encourage your crew members to ask questions when they are unsure of something. This means that you'll need to answer questions patiently. Sometimes say, "I'm glad you asked that," or "Thanks for the question," to keep them flowing. Make sure the person asking the question walks away understanding your answer. Say, "Did I answer your question okay?" And be honest if you don't know the answer to a question, but make it a priority to find out and follow up with the crew member in a reasonable amount of time. A crew is made up of a diverse group of people with different personalities, different strengths, and weaknesses. Over time, you will learn where each team member excels so you can communicate more effectively and assign tasks where they best fit. Of course, this isn't always possible to give every task to the person best suited. It's also important for each crew member to be flexible enough to perform a wide range of tasks. By assigning critical tasks to the person best able to do them, they can get the job done better and faster. It can be helpful to change up assignments and to give crew members a chance to work with different teammates. This can help prevent cliques from forming and builds mutual respect across the team. Assigning less experienced crew members to work with more experienced crew members allows them to learn by doing and shares knowledge and experience by doing. When pairing up a less experienced crew member with a more long-term crew member, point out that the experienced crew member should make an extra effort to share tips and pointers as he goes. Every team member wants to know their efforts are appreciated and that their results are valued. Verbally acknowledging good work is a small thing that can make a big difference in a crew member's day. It is especially meaningful when you recognize their efforts to improve some aspect or other of their work. And don't keep the positive comments to yourself. Talk to your supervisors about who's doing good work. Your crew members will appreciate it, and it will reflect well on you too. Showing appreciation for your crew should happen regularly and in the course of the workday. And while an employee appreciation lunch is also a great way to show kindness to your crew, the genuine acknowledgement of good work has a more lasting effect on the crew's morale. All right, time for the big question. What do you do with an employee who has a bad attitude or a bad work ethic? One person acting out bad behavior can quickly poison the spirit of the whole crew. You must act quickly and decisively to resolve these situations rather than allowing them to carry on unchecked. Keep in mind that behavioral issues don't mean the person is inherently bad. Sometimes the person has issues outside of work that are impacting his mood or performance. Sometimes the person doesn't understand or know the proper behavior. As you address your challenges with a difficult person, you'll want to decide whether you're dealing with a short-term performance issue or a long-term nagging problem. If you are having a problem with an employee, you need to discuss that problem with the employee directly. You also need to keep your supervisor informed about the problem and the actions you are taking. Your supervisor can be a great resource here if you're not sure how to proceed. It is usually best to talk to the employee privately, face-to-face. Be prepared for the discussion by 1. Identifying the problems you are concerned about and discuss them in terms of the work or the particular issue, whether it is a problem with productivity, lack of quality workmanship, or specific bad behaviors. Number 2. State your expectations for change and identify them in a way that makes it very clear what the person needs to do in order to address your concerns. For example, if productivity is an issue, specify your expectations with specifics and examples. You're taking too long to do job X, it should only take an hour, but you're consistently taking 2 to 3 hours to complete it. At the Jones residence, ... With concrete data points and clear expectations, the employee can understand clearly what's expected and know how to work to address the problem. Plus, setting clear expectations allows you to determine whether progress is made. When discussing the problem with the employee, it's important to listen and to ask questions. If the employee has legitimate concerns, make a plan to address these. By asking questions, the employee will feel more comfortable asking for help or identifying what they're struggling with. But the bottom line is this: you want to arrive at a consensus about what the problem is and what needs to be done to address it. Depending on the nature of the problem, consequences for action or inaction should be clearly spelled out. This may mean probation, loss of performance incentives, or deferral of eligibility for a merit pay increase. For more serious issues where termination is a possibility, you should be absolutely clear about what needs to happen or not happen to prevent the employee's termination. Finally, make a note of what happened in the meeting, when it happened, what you discussed, and what resolution you arrived at. Notify your supervisor of the meeting and what happened. It's important to document any disciplinary action in order to protect yourself and your company from legal action. It also creates a formal record that helps keep the workplace fair. Many crew leaders have been surprised about how successful this sort of approach can be. Employees often make deliberate changes in their behavior to address the specific concerns. Both sides learn how to work together better. But if problems continue, having a second one-on-one meeting with the employee with clear expectations and with specific consequences spelled out. Again, take notes on the meeting and notify your supervisor. Be sure to be consistent and steady in your desire to see improvement. Finally, if the problems do not resolve, take disciplinary action in accordance with company policy. Your supervisor should be well aware of the situation at this point. You should have his or her approval before disciplinary action is taken. Now, if your crew is having problems with productivity or quality control, the first step is to identify the problem. Production data is immensely helpful here. If you have good information about how long each task takes, you can pinpoint the place where you are losing productivity and then attend to what is causing the problem. If there is one task or an area that is especially problematic, make a point of helping out with that task or watching the crew so that you can address working methods or procedures as they are happening. Take time to discuss how to work more effectively or to show crew members how to install something the right way. As always, keep conversations positive and constructive, focus on the problem, and invite questions and feedback to arrive at a solution. When you have identified a problem and discussed the solution with the crew, follow up early to see if they are making progress or they might need some more help. If the quality of work or productivity rate improves, take the opportunity to praise the crew's improvement. No matter how thorough the planning and organization, problems are going to arise on site. That's just how life works. And as the crew leader, it's your job to solve them. When a crew member isn't sure what to do, or when the plans don't match up with the physical job site, you're the one who will decide what to do. Let's consider an example of a small problem that might come up on a job site and work through some strategies that you can use to address it. Let's suppose that you send Jane to mount the controller on the side of the garage, where the controller is located in your plan for the installation. Jane comes back a few minutes later and tells you that there isn't a power source there. So what do? To start off, you might want to walk over to the proposed location and have a look for yourself. Make sure that there isn't a power source that Jane didn't see. You may look around to see if there's another location nearby that has a power source. Then you might consult the plan and make sure you're even looking in the right place. This is the initial step in solving the problem, gathering all of the information you need to make an informed decision. This might include consulting the project plans, specifications, product manuals, or other construction documents. It should involve looking at the actual job site and discussing the issue with the crew members working in that area. Consulting sources of information first will allow you to refine your question and to be informed if you need to talk to other people about the issue. If you can't find an answer from the information in the plans or on site, the next step might be to contact someone who could help you out. This could include your crew, your supervisor, the designer, other contractors, the general contractor, the customer, or the distributor of a product. It's important to check with anyone whose work will be affected by a change in the plan, or who might have a reason for specifying that the installation be done in a particular way. Once you have gathered all available information and checked with any individuals affected by the issue, you may be left to make the decision on your own. If this is the case, take a moment to consider the implication of your decision on other phases of the project. This doesn't need to be a particularly involved process, but before you make a call about one component of a project, take a moment to think about how it might affect other aspects of the project down the line. In the matter of Jane's controller, consider the pros and cons of other locations, including ease of maintenance, of customer and contractor access, aesthetics, and ease of installation. Once the decision is made, the only thing you need to do is to indicate the new position of the controller on the as-built design and show it to the customer once the installation is complete. This process will often be abbreviated as you quickly assess the situation and make a decision that accounts for all of the information you have, what you know about the preferences of the other people involved in the project, and your foresight about how it will shape the rest of the project. Understanding the process is helpful for the times that you get stuck or encounter a problem that requires input from multiple parties. In these cases, you'll want to make sure you have all necessary information and input from all of the relevant people before making a decision. Some crew leaders advise against thinking out loud, as it can be confusing to your crew. You don't want your crew to think that you have decided one thing only to find out later that they mistook your thinking out loud for an actual decision. It is important to stick to your decision once it's been made. Changing your mind or flip-flopping can be very disruptive to the project, frustrate the crew, and cause delays. Once the decision has been made, follow up with anyone affected by the decision or anyone who needs to be updated. Being a leader involves simple things done well. 1. Do your job well. 2. Treat your crew with respect. 3. Remain professional. And 4. Always focus on the job at hand. Leading your crew really boils down to working for your crew, giving them the tools they need to do the job well, helping them to be able to put in their best work every day, and creating successful outcomes one job at a time.
Oh, for sure.